name is Emily and I'm the garden coordinator here for Jan's Garden at the North Texas Food Bank. And welcome to our episode of Homegrown to Homecooked. Today we're talking all about blackberries.
Hi everybody, my name is Ashton and I'm on the nutrition team here at the North Texas Food Bank, and today we're going to be making a healthy balanced breakfast using blackberries grown here in Jan's Garden.
Let's get started. Let's start off with a few fun facts about blackberries. So blackberries are actually not true berries. They are what's called an aggregate fruit, which means that all the little bumps that you see on a blackberry are all individual fruits with their own seed. They just grow together to make one fruit. Another fun fact is that blackberries are actually in the rose family, so they're going to be related to raspberries and dewberries as well. Blackberry varieties that you can buy have a couple of different types of growing habits. The first one is going to be an erect or upright growing habit, and those come in thornless and also have thorns. Another growing variety that you can have is one that's a trailing thornless blackberry. And this one that we have right here is a thornless blackberry, and the variety that we have is called Washita. And Washita blackberries are really great for Texas because they're heat tolerant, and these berries are going to ripen around mid-June. So when we're in the peak of our summer, this is going to be a great heat tolerant plant. And this variety is also really great for our growing zone. So we're in zone 8 according to the USDA zone map. We are in zone 8, and this variety is great for zones 5 through 9, so it should work wonderfully. This variety that we have here in Jan's Garden will be ready to be harvested in about midsummer, and again, it'll produce for at least 5 weeks, so you'll get a great, nice harvest during the summer. Now, whenever you're looking at your blackberries and deciding if they're ready to be harvested or picked, there's a few things to look for. So you want the berry to be a nice, even, glossy black color and still somewhat firm. And it's important to remember that when you're harvesting blackberries, they don't ripen anymore once they're harvested. And whenever you are harvesting, try to keep them in the shade as much as possible, because putting these delicate berries in direct sunlight can harm them and they won't last as long for storage. Blackberries are a really interesting plant because they are a biennial plant. So this means that it's going to take 2 years for this plant to complete its life cycle and actually produce fruit, and that will happen in the second year. There are 2 different types of canes or stems that your blackberry is going to grow. So the first one is called a primocane. A primocane is one that you can remember because it's the cane that appears first. It's only going to grow vegetatively, which means it's just going to get longer and it's going to produce leaves. The second cane, which is going to produce the second year, that's the floricane, and you can remember that by it producing flowers. So you have your flora on your floricane, your flowers, and then primocane, that's your first cane, and it's the primary cane you'll see. So for an example, this right here, this long cane right here, is a primocane. And I know that because it has nice new green growth. This was not here last year. You can see a lot of new growth here. It's a bright green. There are no berries or flowers on this stem or on this cane. So that's how we know this is a primocane. It will produce fruit next year. These canes right here that you see with berries growing on them, this is a floricane. And floricanes only produce fruit one time. So once the berries this season are done fruiting on this floricane, then we will prune it off. So pruning is very important for blackberries because it helps you get rid of the dead canes so your new ones each year can come out full flush. Since this plant is a biennial plant, pruning is really important. So if you have a trailing variety, which this one is more of an upright variety, which again just means it can keep itself upright. But if you have a trailing variety, you want to prune off your floricanes after they're done producing. I would recommend pruning back your floricanes. Again, those are the canes that have berries on them this year. Prune those back way after summer is over to allow any nutrients that are still in the stem to come back down to the base of the plant, okay? So I would recommend pruning those floricanes late fall or even in winter. And then whatever canes are left, which would be your primocanes from that year, you can train them on your trellis however you want to. For upright varieties of blackberries, pruning looks a little bit different. So when your floricanes are done producing, you're still gonna cut them all the way down to the base of the plant in the winter time. All right, so you're gonna wait till winter and let those canes die back and after all the berries have been harvested from that cane. For primocanes though, in the spring, it's a really great time to tip prune your plants. And tip pruning is just where you cut off about 1 to 2 inches at the end of the cane. And this is gonna be happening for the primocane. So right here, I have a really healthy, nice primocane. This grew this year, it's a new cane, so it's not producing fruit yet. But I'm just going to cut the top 1 to 2 inches off. And I'm gonna cut it off at a node, which is where some leaves are growing. And here we are. This is the top I cut off. The reason we do this is to increase branching and that will help you produce more berries next year, because next year this prima cane will be a flora cane. You want to wait to tip prune your plants until that cane is at least 4 feet long, so you want to be mindful of that. Once you cut all your flora canes off in the winter, train your primo canes that are left, and they'll produce fruit the following spring. Just be mindful of, it's a good idea to prune about 1.5 to 2.5 feet off of those prima canes that are still there on the plant, because that's going to help it grow full flesh for the following spring. And that's what we did with this plant, and it looks absolutely beautiful and is producing wonderfully this year. So our plant right now has all the different stages of growth right now, so I want to walk you through what those look like. So right here we have our buds. These are our flower buds, and they're closed, and pretty soon they are going to open and look like this flower right here. And right here in the middle, this green part, that is what's going to turn into the berry. And you can see even here, this one next to it has lost all of its petals. And then once that happens, a berry starts to form. And then the berries will eventually turn from green to a reddish color. And eventually that red is going to turn into, you see this one's getting a little bit of a darker color. And we have this one right here that's a blackberry, a true blackberry, and that's when you know that it is ready to go.
Emily, thank you so much for all that wonderful information about growing and harvesting blackberries. Today we're going to be making a dish using fresh blackberries. We are going to be making whole wheat mixed berry pancakes. This is a really healthy meal that's great to get the kids involved in the kitchen. We're going to be starting with our blackberry and mixed berry compote, which is going to be the topping for our whole wheat pancakes. All right, so we are going to go ahead and start with our compote by having a saucepan on medium to low heat, and we're going to go ahead and add about 1/4 cup of water to our saucepan. And then we're going to go ahead and start mixing in our berries. The first thing we're going to put in is a cup of blackberries. Fun fact about blackberries: 1 cup of blackberries, which is what we're using in our recipe today, is 1/3 of your daily fiber, which is really awesome. 1 cup of blackberries is also half of your daily intake of vitamin C. So it's a really great fruit to add in. So once we get our cup of blackberries, we're gonna wanna go ahead and add in 1/2 cup of raspberries. And raspberries, just like the blackberries, are also a really excellent source of fiber. And then the last berry that we're going to be putting in our mixed berry compote is blueberries, which are rich in antioxidants. So we've got a really great mix here. You can get these fresh. We're using fresh today because some of these are in season, but you don't have to. You can use frozen, and in that case you can leave the water out. So we've got our berries on, and what we're going to want to do is basically let these cook until they start forming a sauce. So we've got all 3 of our berries. We've got our water. I'm going to go ahead and add about 1/2 tablespoon of cornstarch to the mix. Cornstarch is going to help this thicken into our compote, which is what we want, a nice thick berry sauce. So we'll go ahead and start mixing this. And what we're gonna want is for this to kind of cook down for about, I'd say maybe 10 minutes or so. And what we're looking for is for the berries to kind of start popping. So once it gets nice and hot and starts turning into our compote sauce, you're gonna start to see the blackberries and the blueberries kind of start to pop. And you'll want to make sure that you get the cornstarch nice and mixed in. Like I said, that's going to be our thickening agent. Okay, fantastic. So now that we have our compote cooking, we're gonna go ahead and start putting together our whole wheat pancakes. We are gonna start with our dry ingredients first. So the first dry ingredient we're starting with is just a whole wheat flour. We are making whole wheat pancakes. This is just a healthier option. A lot of times the stuff you buy at the store is refined. So this is just a great way to make sure you're getting the whole grain. It has a little bit of extra fiber and protein, so it makes a really balanced breakfast, especially with our berry topping. So we're gonna start with about a cup of the whole wheat flour. Get that in there. And then next we're gonna be doing half a cup of quick oats. For this recipe, if you are gonna include the oats, you wanna make sure they're quick oats and not the steel cut oats because we're gonna be cooking this right away. Again, this is gonna be half a cup. So we get our half a cup of oats, perfect. And then also on our dry ingredients, we're gonna be adding baking powder. This is so we get a nice fluffy pancake. And our baking powder is going to be 1 tablespoon. There we go. And then the last of our dry ingredients is gonna be salt. You can do a dash of salt if you want. If you're familiar with cooking, you wanna kinda eyeball it. I'm gonna measure it out. It's 1/4 of a tablespoon of salt is what we're putting in for this recipe. There we go, excellent. Now we just wanna mix together our dry ingredients really well. Get everything nice and mixed in. And so your dry ingredients should look like this. Once you get it all nice and mixed in, and then we're gonna move on to our wet ingredients. Okay, so now that we have our dry ingredients put together, we're gonna go ahead and put together our wet ingredients. Our wet ingredients are gonna start with 1 large egg. So we'll go ahead and get that in the pan. And we're gonna go ahead and whisk our egg. And once that's nice and whisked, we'll go ahead and add in our other ingredients, which will include 1 cup of non-fat milk. We're using non-fat milk. You can use 2% milk, you can use almond milk, oat milk. If those are the types of milks that you use at your house, then that is a great substitute, but we're using just regular low-fat milk today. So get the milk mixed in with the egg. And then our last wet ingredient for this mixture is gonna be canola oil. Substitutes for this, you can use olive oil. That's another healthier oil. This is instead of butter. So we'll do 2 tablespoons of our oil. And those are all the wet ingredients. Once we have those 3 things together, we'll go ahead and get that whisked together and nice and mixed in. All right, perfect. Now that we have our dry ingredients and wet ingredients, we're gonna go ahead and mix them all together. So we have our wet ingredients, we have our dry ingredients. We are gonna go ahead and mix them together to make our whole wheat pancake batter. So we'll go ahead and mix our wet in with the dry, just like that. Now, when you start mixing this together, it's gonna be a little bit clumpy. Don't worry about that. Just keep mixing it. You might have to have a little bit of arm strength at the beginning, but just keep mixing it in. It'll take a minute to get it all nice and mixed in. You wanna try and work out any clumps from the flour. Get everything off the sides. If you're making this at home, I would probably recommend not using a whisk for this part because it gets all stuck up inside the whisk and it can be a little bit messy. You have to get it out of the whisk, so using just a spoon like this is fantastic. Okay, great. So this looks pretty good. This is nice and smooth. So we're gonna go ahead and start putting our pancakes together. Okay, so we've got our pancake batter all together, ready to go. We're gonna go ahead and spray down our cooking surface. So this is heated to about a medium to medium high heat. We're gonna get it sprayed so that our pancakes don't stick. We get a nice pancake, hopefully not too messy. So we'll go ahead and pour this. And you can make these as big or small as you want, obviously. We're gonna do probably a medium-sized pancake here. Okay, so once we have our pancakes on the griddle, we are going to let them cook about 2 to 3 minutes on each side. We do want to make sure they're cooked all the way through because they contain raw eggs, so we definitely want to make sure they're cooked. One thing that you want to look for as these pancakes are cooking is for little bubbles to start coming up around the outside of the pancake, and then in the middle. They'll start to kind of look like little craters. That's a pretty good indication that it's time to go ahead and flip those over and let them cook on the other side. So now our pancakes, we're starting to see the bubbles rise on these, so I think they're probably ready to flip. And then you're gonna go ahead and let these sit for about another 2 to 3 minutes or so they cook all the way on the other side. Okay, so it looks like our pancakes are done. They look good, they smell good. We're gonna go ahead and take them off of our griddle here. Okay, so today we didn't add any sugar to our compote or our pancake mix. So we are gonna do a little drizzle of honey over the top just for some sweetness. So we'll just drizzle this right on top. Ooh. Just a little bit. And then we're gonna go ahead and put our berry topping on top of our pancakes. All right, and there we go. We have our mixed berry whole wheat pancakes. And again, this is a really great recipe to make at home with the kids because you can get them involved. There's no cutting or anything involved, so it's a pretty safe one. And then also it's a really balanced breakfast because we've got our whole grains and we've got our berries, so it is a fun one to try. Okay, great. So now we're gonna have Emily, our garden coordinator, go ahead and do a taste test and try out our whole wheat mixed berry pancakes with honey.
Okay, first of all, I just want to say these look delicious. This compote on top is beautiful, and the pancakes are so fluffy. I'm really excited about this. Yeah, people, this is good. We all need to make this at home. I love it. It tastes so fresh with the berries. I love that, especially like in the morning. And these pancakes are the perfect consistency. I love it.
Yeah, this is a really healthy recipe to make at home, and it's a really great way to get berries into your daily balanced diet.
Berry compote's a great idea because it can go on anything and you can just save it for spicing up whatever recipe you want. It's a great idea. Thanks for joining us for this episode, y'all, and we'll see y'all next time.